All right, it's time for a lecture on style. And again, this is another screencast. I thought this would be useful to you as way of revision, since we already had one discussion of style before you wrote a lot of your major sections. I thought now you can look back on what you've written and apply some additional strategies. So I think these are a little simpler and a little more plug and play, meaning you could do a search for some of these rules and make changes that way. So they're a little less generative, but again, I think they'll be helpful for you. And if you're going to learn to improve your writing, take to heart these rules. They're not random. They work, and I think you'll find that can give you an edge over someone who isn't good at writing or is only marginally good at writing, and could potentially even land you a better job. All right, so I've got several rules here, 11 pages. I think this will go pretty quickly. So rule 1, begin sentences in different ways. So don't just use the same form for every sentence. And we tend to go to the same form when we're writing because it comes naturally to us. So you have to go back and revise this into your papers. Okay, here's an example sentence that I'm going to use for the next few examples. So the boring one. The food bank establishes a relevant presence in Oklahoma City by creating a model garden. The model garden provides a way for those wishing to start community gardens to understand the process. The model garden lets the whole city have better and more local produce. Okay, it's fine. It's really dull. Notice the little changes. The food bank establishes a relevant presence in Oklahoma City by creating a model garden. Same sentence. What's more, it provides a way for those wishing to start community gardens to understand the process. The result? In the end, the model garden lets the whole city have better and more local produce. So just throw in those little transitions, those little beginnings to sentences that can change their whole frame. And I could have gone a lot more severely on this. I could have completely reordered some of the sentences, but I didn't want to. I wanted to show you just a little bit, just that. What's more, the result, in the end, that makes the writing flow a lot better. So I'm not saying just tack on those to the beginning, but just see how the repetition of rather uniform types of sentences creates a dullness to your writing. And while technical writing may not be the most interesting, it should not be intentionally dull. Okay, a similar effect can be made by combining sentences in different ways. We've got that same example, so I'm not going to reread it. But look for how I've combined the next two sentences after the first one. Including the first one. The food bank establishes a relevant presence in Oklahoma City by creating a model garden which provides a way for those wishing to start community gardens to understand the process, allowing the whole city to have better and more local produce. Okay, what's relevant about this example is that it takes all three sentences and puts them into one, which makes it more one idea. So it's not these separate ideas that are kind of moving from A to B to C, but it's really that this model garden has a purpose, and that is all contained within one sentence, which actually makes more sense. But I've got a different example that has two sentences. The food bank establishes a relevant presence in Oklahoma City by creating a model garden which provides a way for those wishing to start community gardens to understand the process, giving OKC better, more local produce. As a result, the whole city becomes healthier. Personally, I like this one a little better. It's slightly longer, but it kind of has that punch. I love that phrase, as a result. It ties it all together. It kind of gives you a conclusion. And that conclusion is tied directly to the relevance, right? Healthier city. Okay, and again, I've done this just on a few sentences. If you do this 20 times throughout your recommendation report, think about how much stronger it's going to be. Okay, rule 3. Employ different modes of sentences. Maybe you remember these from high school. Declarative, right? Just straightforward. Imperative, it's command. Questions, or interrogatory. And then please don't ever use exclamatory sentences in either academic or technical writing. They're never appropriate. So here, the same sentence, declarative mode. Food bank establishes a relevant presence in Oklahoma City by creating a model garden. Imperative. Consider this. The food bank establishes a relevant presence in Oklahoma City by creating a model garden. Interrogative. How did the food bank establish a relevant presence in Oklahoma City? It began a model garden. Okay, they're all saying exactly the same thing. Now, people tend to overuse questions and underuse imperatives, so consider using more imperatives. Look, I just used one. Okay, rule 4 is use transitions, and you're probably good at this already, but I think it's helpful to think about what transitions do. So here are some examples of the function and then the transition itself. If you want to show contrast, you can look at on the other hand. If you want to illustrate, say it follows then, or consequently, or therefore. Thus is a little outdated. And I'm going to put this document on Blackboard so that you can reference all of these if you're interested. To indicate a sequence of events, first, second, third. That is incredibly useful. Now, you're probably going to want to use list format because we're doing tech writing if you choose that one. If you want to summarize, as we've seen, altogether, finally, don't use in conclusion. It's always overused. To me, it's always boring. All right, Rule 5. Avoid repetition of the same nouns or verbs. The. Maybe you've seen sentences that drone on like this: the model garden, the model garden, the model garden. Now, if it's a keyword, you get a little bit more leniency on that. Don't just start finding synonyms if it's an important term. But otherwise, watch out for using the same term if it's not that important. Or even if it's an unusual word and you've used it a couple times, it's going to stand out. So try to be a little more natural with your style and avoid that problem. Another thing to avoid is these words: thing, really, very, literally, so, there is, and there are. The best thing about the food bank is its model garden. Okay, thing, what does that even mean? What are we saying about the model garden? Consider the revisions. The food bank is relevant because of its model garden. The food bank matters because of its model garden. I like that last one, because matters is a strong verb, and we get to avoid that is, which is kind of weaker. So I really like that revision. As mentioned in the last rule, avoid there is and there are. There are two important parts of the food bank's model garden. Okay, we get it, but it's not interesting. It doesn't really tell us a whole lot. The food bank's model garden features two important parts. Maybe find that a little too bureaucratic or showy. The food bank's model garden is divided into two parts. Now, granted, in that second example, we're using passive voice, but the actor here is not relevant, so why not use passive voice? And I like that word divided. It gives a very clear sense of the breaking up of it. Whereas just saying that there are two important parts doesn't really get that sense that they're divided. So it depends on what you're saying, but you can really give us a more vivid picture by avoiding there is and there are. Also, when possible, avoid to be verbs. Now, in a document like the one you're writing, there are going to be verbs. It's just inevitable. But if you can cut down on them, especially when you can say it in a stronger way. So look at these examples. The food bank is crucial to creating gardens in Oklahoma City. Or the food bank drives the creation of gardens in Oklahoma City. Now, crucial is a really good word. I gave that first sentence a good word. But drives, it carries with it that sense of a food bank, like a food drive, right? But it also carries with it, someone driving a car, pushing things forward, driving a herd of cattle. So drive has really strong connotations associated with it. And to see food bank as driving creation of gardens, I think, is a more effective statement. Again, may seem very minor to you. You might be really annoyed that I'm even going over these rules. But if you do this 20, 30 times throughout your recommendation report, just imagine how much more vivid it's going to be. All right. Another rule. Use specific instead of general words. So not some people work at the food bank, but Mason Weaver teaches garden classes at the food bank's model garden. So that may have been what you were thinking when you actually said some people work at the food bank. That's what I was thinking because I know Mason Weaver. But if you don't say it, if you don't give us that specific, then we're not going to get it. Now, you need to generalize sometimes, right? But those generalizations should always have been backed up with specifics. All right. And Rule 10. Use the shortest and simplest word or phrase. This is not about our topic, but it is said that power is corrupting, or, as John F. Kennedy said, power corrupts. By the way, the next phrase was poetry cleanses. Model gardens are a potential source of city growth. The model gardens grow cities. Doesn't that give you a better image of like plants germinating from the ground? All right, so those are the rules we have. Again, this is posted at the bottom of this unit under course content. I hope these are helpful. I hope you'll latch on to just 2 or 3 of these rules and really go to town on your recommendation report and make those changes. Trust me, I've read enough papers that I'm going to notice those when you have made intentional decisions about how to revise your papers, and that's going to make your grade a lot higher. I hope this was helpful to you. Good luck finishing your recommendation report.